Chatsworth House, Derbyshire. Little Charlotte Pemberton, 8 years old, paralyzed since birth, watches from her 100,000-pound wheelchair as Thomas, the cleaner, plays with his daughter Lily on the Persian rug. 20 million spent on treatments, 17 international specialists, 4 Nobel laureates consulted. All agreed. She would never walk. But in that moment, as billionaire Elizabeth Pemberton storms in screaming to fire that man, the impossible happens. Charlotte's right foot moves 2 centimeters toward Lily, the first voluntary movement in 8 years of life. Because sometimes miracles don't come from millionaire medicine, but from a father earning £1,000 a month and a girl with worn shoes who just wanted a friend. Thomas Mitchell crossed the threshold of Pemberton Manor with hands cracked from bleach and a back bent from 10 hours of work. 42 years old, widowed for 3 years, single father to Lily, who grew with her grandparents while he cleaned the palaces of London's elite. The manor in Belgravia was a monument of 6,000 square meters, 20 rooms that smelled of ancient wealth and modern solitude. The agency had sent him as an emergency replacement with ironclad rules: never speak, never look, never exist beyond strict necessity. £1,200 a month to be an efficient ghost in the house of Elizabeth Pemberton, 35 years of surgical perfection, heiress to a £4 billion pharmaceutical empire, widow of an oil magnate who died leaving her another $3 billion. The first time he saw Charlotte, his heart shattered. The girl sat motionless in her technological wheelchair, a concentration of NASA technology that cost as much as a flat in Kensington. 8 years of fragile beauty, raven hair, amber eyes full of imprisoned intelligence, legs immobile under the cashmere blanket, paralyzed since birth by cerebral palsy that 20 million in treatments hadn't touched. Thomas developed a silent routine. He arrived at 6 when the house slept, always cleaned where Charlotte could see him. He started with small, clandestine gestures, toilet paper origami becoming swans, strategically forgotten flowers, shadow puppets when light permitted. Charlotte watched him with hunger for human contact, and when he winked, violating all protocol, she almost smiled. Almost. After 3 months came the unforgivable. It was Saturday. Grandparents ill, nursery closed. Thomas brought Lily to work, hiding her in the broom cupboard with a dead iPad, and pleased to stay quiet. Lily, 7 years of pure energy and clothes from Brick Lane Market, lasted 5 minutes before sneaking out, chasing a butterfly. He found her in the drawing room, 3 meters from Charlotte. The girls stared at each other like aliens from opposite planets. Lily broke the ice with disarming simplicity, asking if that chair could fly like the X-Men's. The silence that followed was electric. Then came the first miracle. Charlotte laughed, a true, crystalline laugh that filled the manor as it hadn't for years. And she spoke her first word in 2 years. No. Lily wasn't fazed. She said it was a shame. She'd like to fly, but she could do cartwheels. And she launched into messy somersaults on the 100,000-pound Persian rug, ignoring the sacrilege. Charlotte laughed again, then did the impossible, extended her hand toward Lily. A few centimeters of voluntary movement contradicting 17 diagnoses. Elizabeth's scream when she entered could shatter crystal. The scene she saw was her worst nightmare. That little street urchin in her drawing room, her daughter laughing, false hopes germinating. She ordered Thomas to disappear immediately, threatened lawyers and ruin, but while she screamed the miracle 20 million hadn't bought happened. Charlotte moved her right foot, 2 deliberate centimeters toward Lily, and 1 clear word: stay. Silence fell like a guillotine. Elizabeth froze, seeing her daughter move the foot again, 3 centimeters this time. Lily, with innocence that cuts through adult complexity, simply said, Charlotte just wanted a friend to play with. Tears streaked Elizabeth's perfect face as she understood the devastating truth. Her daughter didn't need another £100,000 specialist, but a girl with worn shoes and a father who believed in miracles. Elizabeth didn't sleep for 72 hours, sitting in her study, staring at medical reports that cost more than houses. All agreed on the impossibility of voluntary movement, yet Charlotte had moved her foot, twice, toward that market girl. The private detective dug into Thomas's life. Widower, wife dead from leukemia, minimal mortgage, brilliant daughter despite everything, worked 16 hours daily to survive. No vices, no shadows, just a man breaking his back for his daughter. The fourth day, Elizabeth did the unthinkable. Descended to the staff kitchens at dawn. Thomas was already there, polishing silver that wasn't his out of pure dedication. They truly looked at each other for the first time. She confessed Charlotte kept moving that foot toward the door, as if waiting. He replied that Lily drew for Charlotte every day, already considered her a friend. Elizabeth's resistance crumbled. She allowed Lily to return, 1 hour daily, supervised. The first afternoon was revolutionary. Lily entered ignoring Turners and Stradivarius violins, went straight to Charlotte with market Barbies, one with a missing arm, special, precisely because of that. She played with total abandon, speaking for both, creating stories where princesses in wheelchairs saved the world. After 20 minutes, the second miracle, Charlotte extended her hand and took a Barbie. First complex voluntary action in 8 years. Elizabeth, hidden behind a column, stifled a sob. Thomas, pretending to clean the same vase for half an hour, saw his daughter work magic medicine couldn't explain. Weeks transformed into miraculous routine. Charlotte progressed, first hands, then arms, then torso. Professor Yamamoto, flown from Tokyo for £150,000, studied hours of video, concluding it wasn't medicine, but something inexplicable. The girl had found a reason to move. 2 months later, the inevitable confrontation. Elizabeth summoned Thomas to her study, him with shoes still damp from bleach, her impeccable in her £10,000 suit. She asked how much he wanted to keep bringing Lily. The answer carved him into history. He didn't want money. Lily came from affection. Love couldn't be bought. Elizabeth was speechless. This man who earned in a month what she spent on handbags was refusing a fortune. He explained Charlotte hadn't moved for 20 million, but for a girl with worn shoes. And that should make her think. That evening Elizabeth did the unthinkable. Came down to play. Lily invited her with disarming naturalness. Charlotte looked at her with hope. For one surreal hour, the billionaire heiress played with Barbies on the floor in her £10,000 suit. When Charlotte extended her hand to touch her mother's, first voluntary contact in 3 years, Elizabeth cried real tears. Not from script, but from miracle. The crucial moment came on a Thursday. Charlotte would try to stand. Doctors discussed infinite risks. Thomas cut short. She had to try. With Lily extending hands, Thomas on one side, Elizabeth on the other, Charlotte put hands on armrests, her face contorted with superhuman effort. Millimeter by millimeter, she stood. She remained upright 3 seconds looking at Lily. Then her legs gave way, but Thomas caught her. The girl had won. For 3 seconds, she'd been vertical in the world. Lily jumped, shouting victory. Elizabeth clutched Thomas without realizing. They weren't the billionaire and cleaner anymore, but 2 parents united in miracle. That night, Charlotte dragged herself to the sofa alone. She asked her mother if Lily and Thomas could live there. She explained with devastating simplicity that they saw her as Charlotte, not as Charlotte's broken legs. Elizabeth kissed her daughter and took the phone to revise contracts, this time under Thomas's conditions. She'd understood important things weren't bought, they were earned. 2 months later, Thomas and Lily lived in the manor's East Wing, not as servants, but as extended family, a term that sounded strange among marble and crystal. Charlotte walked with a frame, 5 steps the record. Every progress was celebrated like Olympic gold. Evenings became rituals of whiskey and confessions. Thomas told of Sarah dead in 6 months from leukemia, leaving him with a newborn. Elizabeth told of Alexander dead with his mistress, while she discovered she was pregnant. Two broken souls finding improbable symmetry. The kiss came after Charlotte took 10 consecutive steps. They embraced in joy, and lips found each other with naturalness of those who'd always searched. They separated scared, avoiding each other 3 days until the girls intervened. Lily and Charlotte orchestrated a forced dinner, supermarket pizza and champagne, the impossible union of their worlds. They ordered the parents to dine together while they watched a film. 2 adults, cornered by small strategists. Thomas laughed first, then Elizabeth. The dinner was the beginning of something indefinable. But the outside world bit. Photos in tabloids headlined Poison, The Billionaire, and The Cleaner. London high society seethed with scandal. At the Savoy Gala, Victoria Astor Churchill attacked with malice, calling Thomas Elizabeth's new hobby. The response was legendary. He was the man who'd made Charlotte walk when 20 million had failed, and was worth more than all the billions in the room. In the taxi back, Thomas was admiring. Elizabeth confessed not even knowing who she was before him, just money and control. Now she was mother to a walking girl, and the woman falling in love with a man she couldn't buy. That night, in the East Wing, 2 opposite worlds became one. The media attack came fierce. A video of Charlotte walking sold for £50,000 with infamous accusation. All staged, Charlotte never paralyzed, Thomas a paid actor. The Pemberton empire under attack for false advertising. William Pemberton, the octogenarian patriarch, summoned his daughter.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like, and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
Cold as his empire's marble, he gave an ultimatum. Choose between Thomas and the company, between him and Charlotte's inheritance. Elizabeth left trembling with rage, but found worse at home. Journalists besieging, drones violating, girls terrorized. Thomas offered to leave to protect them. Charlotte did the impossible, ran, stumbling and falling, to him. She clung screaming not to go, that she was better only thanks to him. Elizabeth took the phone and called a press conference at Great Ormond Street Hospital. The press conference was an epic event. 300 journalists, national broadcast. Professor Yamamoto presented 8 years of irrefutable documentation. The paralysis had been real beyond all doubt. Elizabeth spoke firmly. 20 million had failed. The cure came free from a girl and father who believed in play. If this damaged Pemberton shares, she'd sell everything, but not the family found. Charlotte stood with titanic effort and walked to the microphone. She simply said she didn't walk, and now did, because Lily was her friend, and Thomas the dad she wanted. Lily shouted she wanted Elizabeth as mom. Flashes exploded, not for scandal, but for the purest love story. William Pemberton watched live from his glass empire. His secretary found him crying, never seen in 60 years. He ordered immediate transfer of all shares to Charlotte. The war was over, but Thomas still fought his demons of inadequacy. One night, overwhelmed by the weight of not deserving this fairy tale, he packed bags. He left a farewell letter, fled at dawn. Elizabeth found the paper at 5 and woke the girls. The hunt for London's most stupidly noble man had begun. They found him at King's Cross, sitting on a bench with cardboard suitcases and broken heart. 7 o'clock, commuters running oblivious. Elizabeth in silk pajamas and coat, Lily in unicorn pajamas, Charlotte walking without support for the first time, slow but unstoppable. Lily ran shouting, "You don't escape from love." Charlotte took 92 steps, absolute record, stopping before him panting. She threatened if he left, she'd stop walking. Not blackmail, but truth. She walked for the four of them together. Elizabeth knelt on King's Cross's dirty floor in 3,000-pound pajamas. She asked him to marry the crazy billionaire in love with the man who cleaned her bathrooms. The station exploded in applause, phones recording. London had its fairy tale. Thomas looked at his three women and said the only sensible thing: yes. Wedding preparations transformed Pemberton Manor into an emotional construction site. Not the millions event everyone expected, but an intimate ceremony in the family chapel. Charlotte trained daily to walk the aisle as bridesmaid. Lily planned flowers with military precision. Elizabeth discovered organizing a wedding for love was different from social contract. But the universe had one last test. A journalistic investigation dug into Thomas's past, finding a hidden detail. He had a brother in prison for trafficking. The news exploded like an atomic media bomb. The pharmaceutical princess's criminal brother-in-law headlined the front page. Thomas collapsed. He hadn't spoken of James from shame, the younger brother he'd tried to save, who'd slipped into drugs while he worked to support his sick wife. He'd visited him monthly for years in secret, sending money for lawyers. Elizabeth found him packing again, convinced of bringing only dishonor. This time was different. She stopped him calmly and revealed her secret. She, too, had a brother, Edward, dead from overdose at 19. The Pemberton Empire was born from pain. Her father had built Europe's largest rehabilitation clinics to atone for failing to save his son. Two families broken by drugs looked at each other with new understanding. Elizabeth proposed something revolutionary. Hire James when released. Give him a second chance in the foundation. Thomas cried. She cried. They embraced while two girls watched from the door, learning true love accepts shadows, too. The week before the wedding, Charlotte relapsed. Her legs stopped responding. Panic invaded the manor. Doctors rushed, speaking of regression, excessive expectations. Charlotte lay in the hastily installed hospital bed. Lily held her hand. Thomas and Elizabeth alternated vigil. Lily understood. She whispered something in Charlotte's ear, who smiled weakly. She ran to Thomas and Elizabeth, declaring Charlotte was afraid. Afraid that after the wedding, everything would change. The magic would end. Loneliness would return. It wasn't medical relapse, but emotional terror. Thomas and Lily moved into Charlotte's room. For 3 days they lived there, ate on the floor, slept on mattresses, transformed the medical room into family fort. Elizabeth canceled all commitments, fired the umpteenth wedding planner who protested. Family was more important than perfect ceremony. The third day, Charlotte stood, not dramatically, but naturally, as if the body had just waited for the heart to calm. She walked to the bathroom alone, washed her face, returned and asked for breakfast. The miracle wasn't in walking, but in having overcome fear together. William Pemberton arrived that evening. The patriarch who'd threatened and blackmailed now brought a gift. The deed donating the entire company to Charlotte, with Thomas and Elizabeth as guardians. He knelt before his granddaughter, asking forgiveness for nearly destroying her happiness for pride and profit. Charlotte hugged him. Lily joined, and the old emperor cried, embracing girls worth more than his empire. The wedding day, London woke under torrential rain. Wedding planners would have panicked, but the Mitchell-Pemberton family laughed. Charlotte declared rain brought luck. Lily started dancing in puddles in her ceremony dress. Thomas and Elizabeth looked at each other and decided it was perfect. The ceremony was intimate and chaotic. Charlotte walked to the altar, fell halfway, got up laughing, declaring she was like everyone now. She fell and got up. Lily lost the rings, found them in the wrong pocket, made everyone laugh. William Pemberton walked his daughter down, whispering her husband was worth more than him because he'd enriched the family in the only way that counts. During the ring exchange, the last miracle happened. Charlotte stood spontaneously and walked to them. She no longer wobbled. Her legs, strengthened by months of struggle and love, supported her surely. She took both their hands and said clearly they were now a real family. No longer broken, but rebuilt stronger. The reception was in the drawing room where everything had begun, where Lily had done cartwheels on the Persian rug, where Charlotte had moved her first foot, where two worlds had collided to merge. Not 500 high society guests, but 50 people who truly mattered. Lily's grandparents, James on special leave, doctors who'd become friends, manor staff who'd witnessed the miracle. Thomas now directed the Pemberton Foundation for Pediatric Rehabilitation, revolutionizing the approach. Instead of just machines and medicines, children playing with children. Lily was chief consultant, an invented title she wore proudly. In 6 months, they'd seen progress in 20 children traditional medicine had abandoned. A year later, the family dined on the terrace. Charlotte ran in the garden with Lily, two sisters by choice who'd rewritten medicine's rules. Elizabeth was pregnant, belly growing under finally comfortable rather than designer clothes. Thomas caressed that unexpected miracle, the second child he hadn't dared dream. Charlotte stopped before them with shocking revelation. She was happy to have been paralyzed. Without that, she wouldn't have met Lily. They wouldn't have found each other. This impossible family wouldn't have existed. Sometimes bad things lead to beautiful ones. You just have to wait for the miracle. Lily added with small philosopher wisdom that they were proof love doesn't look at money or diseases, only hearts. And that the new little brother or sister would be so lucky to be born into a family that knew miracles exist because they'd built one together. As the sun set over London, 4 souls' destiny had broken, and love had mended, looked to the future. The manor that had been a mausoleum of solitude now resonated with life. Persian rugs had tiny footprints. Turners competed with children's drawings. The 300,000-pound piano was covered with scribbled scores by small composers. Thomas thought of Sarah, who would have loved seeing this. Elizabeth thought of Alexander, who would never have understood true wealth was this, but the past was made to teach, not imprison. They'd learned the most important lesson. True love isn't bought with 20 million, isn't found in golden palaces, doesn't come from titles or surnames. It comes from a girl doing cartwheels on valuable rugs, from a father cleaning bathrooms with dignity, from a mother learning to play with Barbies, from a girl deciding to walk because she'd found who to do it for. The security camera recorded that evening's last scene. 4 figures on the terrace. Charlotte and Lily running back dirty with soil. Thomas and Elizabeth hugging them, laughing. The system's automatic tag marked, "Motion detected, residential zone." But what no camera could record was the real movement. 4 hearts beating in unison, proving miracles exist. They don't come from millionaire medicine or desperate prayers. They come from the impossible meeting between opposite worlds, discovering they're made to complete each other. Pemberton Manor was no longer the palace of the paralyzed girl and billionaire mother. It was the home of Charlotte, who ran, Lily, who laughed, Thomas, who'd found love he wasn't seeking, Elizabeth, who'd discovered wealth that doesn't count. It was the house where miracle lived, built one step at a time, one laugh at a time, one impossible day at a time. If you've made it this far, it's because this story touched something deep in your heart. The tears you shed while Charlotte took her first steps are worth more than the 20 million her mother spent on medicine. Now, I need you to do something important. Give this video a like if you believe true love can create miracles. It's not just a like, it's your way of saying stories like this deserve to be told. And in the comments, answer honestly. What would you do if you were Thomas? Would you run from love out of fear of not being enough? Or would you fight for this impossible family? Share this story with that special person who needs to believe miracles exist. We all know someone who's losing hope. Maybe this story is exactly what they need to hear today. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Not for me, but for you. Because you deserve to receive stories every week that remind you money can never buy what really matters in life. And remember, sometimes the greatest miracles come from the most unexpected places, like the third-floor bathrooms of a London manor. Until the next story that will change how you see the world.